You want to know why real communism has never existed? It's because it can't exist. Claiming we should have a government where everybody owns everything equally would be the same as saying we should have a government which magically creates perfect food out of thin air and hands it out to everybody so no one's hungry ever again. Yet you can't do that. Now, it's possible with technology. Eventually, we can come to a point where we have a machine that just fabricates food out of thin air, but it's fantasy. It's science fiction. And communism is also fiction. It's actually quite simple. See, the thing is, every single time some country has tried to create communism, the first thing you have to do is kill a ton of people because they dissent and don't want to live this way. Once you get rid of all of those people, you then realize that, first of all, you're getting rid of thought leaders, people who run industries, expertise, but you clarify. You exemplify exactly what the problem is. You assumed command control, and thus, it doesn't matter what other people say or do, you have created an authoritarian command system, a command economy. It can't exist. Now, I believe regulated capitalism makes a lot of sense, where we do kind of a hybrid situation, right? And there are varying degrees. You know, you have Scandinavia, which lean much towards welfare states, but are very capitalistic. Here's the bad news. I think, I don't have I'm not going to be optimistic about the future. 7 in 10 millennials say they would vote for a socialist. Socialism is a soft way of saying we're walking towards communism. Now, I will tell you this. I think it might be possible to create a system as close to socialism as you could probably get by walking people towards it instead of trying to just, kill the people who refuse. But in the end, you have to realize the system makes literally no sense. Having a group of random people just to decide whatever they do without any kind of barrier, as I explained the other day, I explain this all the time, you end up with literally everybody just wanting to be a singer, a comedian, or a rock star. Okay, well, not everybody can do those jobs. That's why socialism makes no sense. In capitalism, where the basis of it is that the individual is free to trade their labor as they see fit and own private property, we have a distributed system which solves for problems using the free market. Now, the free market isn't perfect, and that's why I believe a mixed economy makes the most sense. Well, here's the bad news. 7 in 10 millennials say they would vote for a socialist. Oh, there's more, though. A story I covered the other day. Majority of Americans want to change the First Amendment, and they want jail time for offensive speech. Congratulations, America. I believe the fault lies with educators because communists are, as far as I'm concerned, communists and fascists have so much in common. What's the point, okay? Sure, fascists, their end goals are completely different, but communists, as far as I'm concerned, they're all authoritarians who want to impose their will on others, and guess what? There's one simple problem with this. No individual can plan for everybody. So I guess maybe an AI-powered communist system, that sounds nightmarish. We'll see how things develop. We have this new poll that shows that millennials and Gen Z are very favorable to socialists and communists. 51%, I believe the number is, have a negative view of capitalism. And it's because they don't know what capitalism is. And it's because they don't know about the history of communism. So I blame the media, who for some reason accept communism. It's really mind-blowing to me when you see left-wing activists out waving a communist flag. I'm like, that's no different than waving like the fascists or something. Like, you're literally bad, evil people. And what happens? The media says nothing. Nobody complains. Well, there you go. So here's what you get. You get a younger generation that not only believes in socialism, doesn't believe in free speech, and paradoxically, there's something else that's kind of strange. Well, they're not having kids. Millennials aren't having kids. And we know this is true. And the question is, well, they talk about why, but think about what the result is going to be. You have a bunch of communist, socialist kids who want to change the government. Yeah, but guess what? You're going to grow up, okay? And there's going to be more opposition to what you believe because the majority of people don't like this and you have no kids. There's not going to be a future generation. Like, listen, if you're a communist, socialist, climate change person and you don't have any kids, guess who is having kids? Christian conservatives. What does that mean for you? You see what the point I'm trying to make is? But I can't predict what's going to happen, just that this is kind of nightmarish. Let's read. The Hill reports 70% of millennials in a new poll say they are somewhat or extremely likely to vote for a socialist candidate. The YouGov and Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation poll released on Monday found that 50% of millennials, defined as between the ages of 23 and 38, and 51% of Generation Z, or those 16 to 22, have a somewhat or very unfavorable view of capitalism, an increase of 8 and 6 percentage points respectively from last year. Only 44% of Generation X, 33% of boomers, and 33% of the silent generation said they were somewhat or extremely likely to vote for a socialist candidate. Hey, Gen X, what are you doing? Bernie Sanders, a Democratic White House hopeful, is a self-identified Democratic socialist who advocates for left-wing policies like the Green New Deal, Medicare for All, and increased tax rates on wealthier Americans. Now, a lot of people have tried to claim Bernie is not a socialist, he's a social democrat, and that's fair. And I've said that too. But in the past few weeks, Bernie Sanders has announced a new plan that turns over 20% of private companies to a fund to pay out dividends to their employees. Ah, there it is. There's the democratic socialism. The goal of democratic socialism is to implement communism without gradually over time. And it's actually the only way it could ever really be done, if it could be done. I don't think it can be, because I think you're trying to make, like, it's a magical fantasy that can't exist. But I always defer to the story of eBay. This may be an urban legend, but the legend has it that when eBay first launched, it was a yellow website. They eventually one day changed it to white, and everyone revolted. The users were angry and said, "This is terrible, change it back, I hate it." So what they did was every day they incremented the color by a tiny percentage point towards white. And eventually a year later, the site was white and no one noticed and no one cared. You make the change slowly and gradual over time, and eventually no one cares anymore. However, the problem is that, in my opinion, eBay is a functioning website and the color is irrelevant. Communism, on the other hand, doesn't work. It has nothing to do with whether or not they're going to wipe out all the dissidents. Because if you're going to, build the system over time, what matters is you're trying to create a system where, here's what happens when I tweeted to the British Socialist Party or whatever. I said, what if I want to build a car? How do I do that? And they said, you just go to the factory and get the parts. And I said, why would I get priority on those parts? How do you determine who should or shouldn't have parts? No answer. And therein lies the big problem. You see, in capitalism, we do have a lot of problems. We have crony capitalism. We have people who extract power and wealth by doing nothing. And those are the biggest complaints people have about capitalism. But they're not talking about what capitalism really means. They're complaining about a corrupt system that should be regulated. At its core, capitalism is I decide to sell my labor for what I see fit. In a socialist system, you don't. The government and the collective assign priority whether or not you deserve it, and that creates a serious problem. You will have people undeserving of certain materials getting access to them, and people who are deserving of them not getting access to them, because you can't differentiate who or why someone should have access. It's true that there are some people who are really good at building bicycles, but they hate it, they don't want to do it, and they would rather not be alive if they were forced to. There are a lot of people who get really, really good at something, and they talk about how much they don't like doing it, and they stop. I know people who are extremely good at certain sports, winning medals, potentially Olympic, and they said it made them miserable, they hated their lives, and they chose this is their life, and they're going to do what makes them happy, and they stopped, and they gave it all up. It's crazy, right? You see these big famous bands making all this great music, and then all of a sudden they break up, and you're like, why would you do that? Why would you throw away everything? Because they weren't happy. It's that simple. People know what's best for them as individuals. And from there, we create a distributed system where people are choosing what they find to be the best. Now, in that system, in a free market system, you end up with runaway businesses, monopolization of power, and those things are dangerous. So we regulate for them. But in the end, you could have somebody who's really, really good at, say, selling widgets. I'm just going to give you a random word, okay? But they're also pretty good at building cars. They can't build enough cars to make a living off of it, but they do buy parts, and over the span of a few years, they restore an old classic car and they sell it for a decent profit. That means they've created something, they've restored something, but they couldn't do it as a profession. There are some people who play video games on the side. They have a regular job, and then they stream video games and make a little extra cash. What would happen in your system? Well, that wouldn't exist. You'd literally just have an army of Generation Z being like, I want to be a YouTuber, and not wanting to do the work. Doing YouTube, streaming, gaming, it's not all easy. People assume that it's like, I've had a lot of people act like being a YouTuber, making YouTube videos is this really, really easy job. Have you seen all of the burnout videos? These people struggle to do this job. No, it is not a perfect scenario. It is not this dream job. What would happen when you implement communism? This is why it doesn't work. But I think the big problem is When you take a bunch of kids and you don't discipline them, and I don't mean beat them, I mean discipline, teach them how to survive, how to earn, how to validate, they end up becoming spoiled. And they think to themselves, I should be they're all narcissistic. It's the easiest way to explain. Check it out. You know why so many celebrities are narcissists? Because narcissists are attracted to fame, right? So it's actually quite simple. You have a lot of people who are probably really good at music, okay? I actually think I'm pretty good at playing guitar. Guess what? You probably have rarely seen me play. I got my guitar right here. There you go, you can hear it. I'm actually pretty good. I'm pretty good. But I don't publish music because I'm not a narcissist. Well, for the most part. I think I'm kind of arrogant sometimes. But I don't play my music. I play it for myself. I think my songs are pretty good. But narcissists are the people who go, everyone must hear my song. They must know. And so they do everything in their power to make sure everyone can hear what they do and see what they're doing. And so you end up with a disproportionate amount of narcissists who are famous. But now we have this younger generation that had all of their troubles swept away by their parents, and they're narcissistic. They're precious snowflakes who got a medal for participation. Well, they think they should have it all. So what happens then when you create a generation of arrogant narcissists, the me generation? Well, they become socialists. They think it's not fair that other people are rich. I should have all of that and do nothing for it. Because their life has always been. Think about it. It's that simple. I'm somebody who went through hardship, struggled, and tried to find a way to succeed. I've been homeless several times when I was younger. I fought to survive. And I realized not everything, most things are not given. They have to be earned, even respect, right? What do you think happens when you take these young people, where every step of the way they were given something by their parents, they were told what to do by their institutionalized learning facilities? They leave college and say, I'm ready for the authority to tell me what to do now and to give me my things. And that's literally what happens. These kids who go to college, they go to school their whole lives. They're completely institutionalized. People talk about how schools indoctrinate. They say colleges indoctrinate young people. No. Here's the thing. Technically, that's true, but it's not because, I don't think it's because there's this nefarious group of individuals and a conspiracy, although many people believe that. Here's what I think actually happens. You take somebody who grew up working on a farm, and they're going to be like, I only got my apples when I grew the apples and tended to them. Therefore, if you want something, you must work for it. You then take somebody who goes to school, they're handed the loans, they demand the loans be paid back by the government. Someone else pay for it. I shouldn't have to. I signed the agreement, but so what? They start school. The teacher says, here's your assignment, go do the work. They say, okay. They go to lunch. Here's your food. They don't know where the food comes from. They don't know where the games come from. The authority just keeps telling them what to do. Eventually, they go to high school. Same thing. College, same thing. Now they're adults in their 20s, mid-20s. And their whole lives, everyone has just handed them what they needed and told them what to do. And I have tried hiring these people, and man, it is a nightmare. They say, what do I do? And I say, I need you to do X. How do I do it? I don't know. That's why I hired you, because I don't know how to do it. So I hired someone who knows how to do it. I swear to God, this is the world we're in. I recently announced I'm going to be hiring a vlogger because we're expanding a space and we got a bunch of projects in the works, a lot of expansion happening. And 90+% are people saying, I have no experience. I've never done this before. I would like the job anyway. And I'm confused by this. I'm like, listen, there's a job I need someone to do, okay? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to those who want to work with me. Like, I really do appreciate everybody's interest, and it means a lot. But there are a lot of people who want to do a job they can't do. Well, listen, if I was going to hire somebody who didn't know how to do a job, I'd just go to the local supermarket and put up a flyer saying, here's a job. No experience required. I wouldn't specifically look for a specialist. I need somebody who knows how to do and has the energy and time to do what I can't. So we got a couple of projects we're expanding on. We're doing this mysteries podcast, right? So I need somebody who can research and explore mysteries, the paranormal, and these crazy stories that can't be proven, so we can have like a skeptic versus idealistic, vision or fantasy version. But basically, we want to talk about these things, and I'll say it's true. I'll say, look, we can't prove it. We got another person saying, man, but what if? And it's going to be a fun conversation. If I knew enough about paranormal research, and I know a little bit, I just do it myself. No, I hire somebody because I need somebody who knows about this stuff. Now back to the main point. You end up with all of these people. Their whole lives have been told what to do and how to do it. So what ends up happening is, I've experienced this, my friends have experienced. You get somebody who says, I have a college degree, I'm here for that job. I have a degree in, literature and folklore. And I say, oh, that's perfect. And they say, okay, what do I do? And I say, find some stories and write some stuff up. How do I do that? Well, I don't know. I hired you because you were supposed to know how to do it. Think about it this way. Could you imagine if somebody went to college for plumber school and then you hired someone to be your building maintenance guy and they said, okay, what do you need me to do? Shower's acting up. Can you fix it? Okay, yeah, just tell me how to fix it. What do you mean tell you how to fix it? You're the plumber. You go fix it. I don't know how to fix it. Well, you got to tell me what to do. And that's what we're getting with these kids. You go to school and they say, here's your test. And they say, okay, how do I do this? Here's your book explaining how to do it. Okay. Then when they get out, instead of having skills that they can contribute to society, they have none. They expect you to tell them what to do. And then when they can't make money because of this, they demand the government pay off all their student debt, which to an extent I'm still in favor for, but it's complicated. I do think there's an air of arrogance in this. They demand the government pay off all my loans. They have no marketable skills. They studied folklore and liberal arts, and then they get mad that they can't live this way, so they demand other people contribute. Well, what do you think happens when you take a bunch of people, okay, with no marketable skills that don't contribute and are just experts in philosophy, and then start extracting resources from people who are working to give to them to support them? The joke is, or the famous quote, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. But let's break that down. The problem with socialism is that there are people working and producing, and the only way to support the other side who isn't is by extracting the value from their labor. And eventually those people get angry and say, I worked so hard to feed my family, and you took it all away from me. And that's why it doesn't work. And that's why I think a mixed economy makes the most sense, because there is predatory capitalistic systems. And I think we are long overdue for a lot more different types of regulation. I got to admit, I do like the idea of partial ownership for employees, but that's something a company needs to implement. If you think a company should do this, start a company and do this. Instead of trying to pass a law mandating all of these companies give away their private property. That's a major overhaul. You can't do it. Anyway, the point of this video is young people are communists. Communism doesn't work. They hate free speech, and it's because they're spoiled brats and everything was handed to them. And they have no idea what they're doing, and we are in for a heck of a ride. But there's one thing that will change this, and it's bad news for the left. Listen, all you Green New Deal types, if you don't have kids, what do you think happens in 20 years when all of the Christian conservatives had 4 or 5 kids, and now they're 20 years old, or 18, 20, and they're voting? You're going to get voted out. So I guess that's technically the good news for the Christian conservatives, but it is a weird circumstance to have all of these millennials not having kids, but the Christian conservatives are having tons. Where do you think that leads us? It's probably why we're seeing Kanye West go all Christian-like, because I think we're going to see a resurgence in Christian conservatism. There's been data to show it might happen. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on youtube.com/TimCast. It is a different channel. I will see you all there.